Am I the asshole? When OCD takes over, the struggle between love, support, and boundaries. My partner has OCD, and over the past year it's become a progressively larger part of our lives. In the beginning, it was manageable, something we could work around with patience and a little extra time. He's always been particular, a bit of a perfectionist, and honestly, I used to admire how careful and detail-oriented he was. But somewhere along the line, it crossed a threshold. His routine started to take over our day-to-day lives in a way that's impossible to ignore. One of his biggest struggles is leaving the house. Every time we go somewhere, he has a ritual, a long series of physical and mental checks to make sure everything is exactly right before we can leave. He'll double-check the locks, make sure the stove is off, verify the windows are closed, everything you can think of, and then some. But it doesn't stop there. He also has mental rituals where he runs through questions in his mind like, did I leave anything on? Am I forgetting something? Over and over again until he's satisfied. At first, I tried to be supportive. I'd wait while he went through his process and reassure him when he needed it. I thought, this is just part of who he is, and I love him, so I can handle it. But his routines have gotten longer and more complex over time. What used to take 5 or 10 minutes now takes upwards of 30, sometimes longer. And the worst part? I can't even help. If I try to reassure him or talk to him during his checks, it throws him off completely. He'll have to start all over again, and the process takes even longer. It's reached a point where it's affecting both of our lives. We've been late to family events, missed movies we had tickets for, and had to reschedule doctor's appointments because we couldn't leave the house on time. It's frustrating, but it's also heartbreaking because I can see how much distress he's in. I've gently encouraged him to seek help, but he's adamant that he doesn't need therapy or medication. He insists he can manage it on his own, even though it's clear that it's getting worse. 2 weeks ago, everything came to a head. My boss invited us to a dinner party at a nice restaurant to celebrate my recent promotion. It was a big deal, not just because of the promotion, but because this was my chance to make a good impression on my coworkers outside of the office. I was nervous and excited, and I wanted everything to go perfectly. Knowing how long his checks usually take, I asked my partner to start getting ready 2 hours before we needed to leave. At first, things seemed to be going smoothly. He got dressed, combed his hair, and looked great, ready to go. I felt relieved, thinking maybe we'd actually make it on time for once. But then, the checks started. I watched as he walked back and forth between the kitchen and the front door, checking the locks, the stove, the lights, everything. At first, I tried to stay calm, thinking, we've got plenty of time. But as the minutes ticked by, I started to feel the pressure building. 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. By the time 30 minutes had passed, I knew we were in trouble. I tried to remind him of the time, but I had to be careful. If I interrupted him too much, it would reset his process, and we'd be even later. I felt trapped, like I was watching the clock run out on an opportunity I couldn't afford to miss. When it became clear that we weren't going to leave anytime soon, I made a decision. I told him, I'm sorry, but I can't wait any longer. I have to go. And I left. Driving to the restaurant, my heart was racing. I kept thinking about what I'd just done, leaving him behind, knowing how upset he'd be. But I also couldn't stop worrying about being late. I didn't want to show up after everyone was already seated, fumbling for an excuse while my boss looked on. When I finally arrived, I was 5 minutes late. I apologized to my coworkers, blaming traffic, and they didn't seem to care. The dinner went well, and I managed to relax a little. But I couldn't stop thinking about my partner, how he'd felt when I walked out the door, and how he'd react when I got home. When I got back, the tension was palpable. He didn't yell or get angry, but his disappointment was written all over his face. He told me he felt abandoned, like I didn't care about his struggles or how hard he was trying. I tried to explain my side, that I'd been under a lot of pressure, that the dinner was important for my career, and that his routines have been affecting both of us. But he wouldn't hear it. To him, I was insensitive and I'd let him down when he needed me. Now, 2 weeks later, we're still not past it. He's still hurt, and I'm still wrestling with guilt. I don't know if I made the right choice that night, but I also don't know what else I could have done. His refusal to seek help is making it harder and harder to cope. I've read about OCD and how it can take over someone's life, and I know he's not doing this on purpose. But I also know that I can't keep living like this, walking on eggshells, rearranging my life around his rituals, and constantly being late or missing out on things. I love him, and I want to be there for him. But I also feel like I'm reaching a breaking point. How do you support someone who won't help themselves? How do you balance love and patience with your own needs and boundaries? I don't have the answers, and I feel stuck. All I know is that something has to change, because this isn't sustainable for either of us. For more interesting daily life stories, make sure to subscribe and comment your ideas. I will be posting more stories about a lot of aspects of life. Thanks for watching. See ya!